wanted to welcome my next guest. He is an amazing indie hip hop artist and a man of many skills. He is a radio host, promoter, journalist, mentor, TED Talk speaker, among many others. He is a member of the famous Strange Famous Records crew and the vocalist of a punk band,
Damn.
Armageddon, on anti-core music. I wanted to welcome BlackLiq. How are you today, brother? Appreciate your time.
I'm chilling, man. I'm chilling. It's like it's been a day. It's been a week. It's been a time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm good, yo. I'm good.
Let's do this. I always love to start with learning about where folks are from, how they grew up, where they were born. Do you mind sharing that with us?
Oh yeah, yeah, yo. So okay, let's see where to begin. All right, so I was born in California, right, in Loma Linda, and we followed work from my father's telecommunications work all the way across the country by car. So I grew up early in my life in a lot of like hotels and a lot of like just constantly moving from place to place to place. And by the time we hit like third grade, I was in Richmond, but we still were living in hotels. And I lived in an apartment for a little bit in elementary school, and then I didn't live in a house because we went back to the hotel. I didn't live in a house till like eighth grade. So I had a unique perspective growing up, and I had an older brother. It was a little harder for him because he was like he couldn't adjust to the whole making friends, losing friends thing.
Sure.
But I grew up all the way across the interstate in that sense, and then I've been in Richmond since then. My upbringing was unique. I mean, when you live with your family in one room, and like your bathroom was your kitchen and stuff, at a lot of times, it creates a certain sort of vibe, I guess, is the way to describe it. And there was alcoholism, there was drugs, it was craziness. The hotels that are like the projects, except just smaller. And
Yeah.
there's all kinds of wildness, but there's also a lot of good people and a lot of good things. And I learned some of the most important like lessons in my life during that time, especially about work ethic from watching my dad. He'd get drunk as shit all night and then get up and go to work,
Get it.
and
Yeah.
like that work ethic always stuck with me, what I'm saying? And also recognizing that your parents are people and their imperfections are the lessons that you can learn that they haven't yet. We don't get everything, but we get something in life. And so to make the most of that is what we're all trying to do. And I saw that at a very early age, like in like fifth grade. So like my childhood kind of like ended. And then it was just kind of like, how do we survive this endless wait to become an adult? When I became an adult, my father, he got incarcerated. They charged him with first degree murder and convicted him. He maintained his innocence, and then he got found guilty. I was there for that, and he got sent to prison for life. And at the same time, my mom lost all her stuff and ended up in my place. Then she ended up out west for a little bit, taking care of her mom, who then passed away, and then she came back.
Yeah.
And now I've taken care of her. She's almost died like twice. So
Oh,
like I'm like a caregiver. Like whenever we're at like a rehab facility, they're like, "You're probably a CNA," and I'm like, "Look, man, I'm just doing what I'm doing." But
yeah.
like, I skipped to that factor because it was the extreme experiences that I had going from place to place, and also living in tight environments in strange places, and seeing the ups and downs of my family, whether it be over money or over drugs, alcohol, whatever it was. So those things that gave me the values that have allowed me to have the work ethic, but also the patience and the compassion to do these things and to take care of myself and my mom and to make decisions as well on my own. I've been sober for like 12 years, and
Yeah.
I've learned to add by subtracting in life. And hip hop was always a consistent thing, just in music and how we from place to place. You're driving by car, so you're gonna hear music. And I grew up on the West Coast, like Easy E and saying
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But I always loved how like Wu-Tang also and Nas were very reflective and about self-empowerment. And those were two things that really made me value intelligence and education.
Right.
And like video games, of course, also required literacy at that point. So it was like those things always made me really want to not be a failure in the real world and try to be the best person I could be on person. But I also found myself in love with this art form later on that allowed me to take the things I've been going through and
Yeah.
turn them into something that other people could view their lives aside to, parallel to, or in the likeness of, congruent to,
Yeah.
and apply it to their problems and overcoming their struggles. And
Oh,
so like hip hop has just been a thing that I never planned to be involved in. I never thought I would
crazy.
rap, what I'm saying?
Wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy,
yeah,
man.
like
Holy cow.
all to every day, this is still weird to me. The fact that I go and teach at a school, I teach kids like a hip hop class is
Yeah.
crazy to me. So it's been a strange, long, winding journey. But I ended up, fortunate enough during the pandemic to link with Strange
Yeah.
Famous and with Mopes and everything and Sage and Storm. And That's been
Yeah.
going really well. And, at the same time, the pump band thing came together, and also my relationship with Man by Stars Records and Obliv,
Yep.
that project, and the one I just put out a year ago, The Lie, and the stuff I've done with Dub Sonata. And just really, I've been fortunate to always be willing to do the work, and
Yeah.
to see every problem as a solution in disguise. And
Sure.
that's how I got involved in working in radio. Nobody wanted to play my music. I had the audacity to say,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, I'll put us on the radio. Nobody
That's
wants
right.
to for a show and nobody wants to pay anybody. I'll throw the shows myself. And I did that for 7 years, But I learned
Yeah.
all that from my upbringing and constantly seeing my family barely scrape by, but make decisions that for the long term, despite the current struggle, would give me the education I needed to always have the confidence and faith in myself to put myself forward through whatever it was. Because if you go through a lot
Yeah.
in an early point in your life, you know how much you can really take as a grown ass man.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that's my life, man. That's how things have gone. And I'm sure I always leave something out, but the most
Yeah.
important thing is that I hope that I represent the people, the ability to believe in yourself, bet on yourself, and to never give up, because failure is what happens before success. Always.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I want to peel back on a couple things you mentioned. For those who know BlackLiq, there is no question about your work ethic.
Yeah.
I mean, just it's amazing, man. All the things that you do, and if you don't know, you will be when you find out. And so, man, you just mentioned just the life of moving from hotel to hotel, and
Yeah.
just seeing some of those extreme things. How, at a young age, did you cope with that? Was it through music or was it through your siblings? How do you
It
think you got
was
through that?
I just knew that I was being shown something. And when you get shown things, like I had what I discovered it through like school, for instance, right? What I
Yeah.
discovered from school is that I was the one who had the advantage on everybody. Like my brother, I don't
Mhm.
want to put thoughts like that, like I'm thinking for him, but my brother, his thing was it was hard for him, and he often was like, oh, I don't want to tell people I live in a hotel. Whereas me, I was like, these are all the things that have gone on in my life, because I realized quickly that people didn't have my perspective and my experiences.
Right.
And the ones who did weren't able to shoulder the weight of fear and everything. And so
Yeah.
I learned early on that it's gonna get worse before it gets better.
Sure.
And every time something went wrong, I mean, I played a video game and I watched what happened next, because I was just like, at this point, it's out of my control. And I learned a long time ago and early in life,
Right.
I could say that you can't stress over things beyond your control.
Yeah.
And a lot of those circumstances were out of my hands. So
Yeah.
I decided I would invest in myself long term, because strangely enough, people seem to turn into adults. And so I was like, one day I'll be an adult. And if
Yeah.
I prepare myself, I won't have to deal, or I'll at least be prepared to handle whatever I have to deal with. And so
Yeah.
that kind of like after I figured out my parents were people, that's when I really
Yeah.
I found myself just thinking, we're just waiting. I'm just waiting to be an adult for my shot, and whatever cataclysm comes, which was my father's incarceration and everything
Yeah.
else. But I was like, I'm gonna prepare myself. And then the one thing that also helped me is I did find that medium
Yeah.
of music and that outlet.
Yeah. And oh man, I love how you mentioned your radio show, how like, hey, no one's playing my shit. I'm gonna play my own shit and create a
Yeah.
platform. And I imagine now it's like you probably get crazy volumes of emails of folks wanting to get their music on. And how do you
Yeah.
find the time to go through all that stuff and put it all together? That's
Oh
quite an
man.
amazing feat, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I got both my radio shows in the same week. I got my WRR
Yeah.
97.3 show, FM show, Hip Hop for the Rest of Us, and I got my WDCE 90.1 FM show, which is
Right.
University of Richmond Hip Hop 101. I ended
Yeah.
up landing those at the same time in the same week. Now I'm the hip hop program and our music director for
Okay.
University of Richmond Station. So I deal with maintaining their database on top of the different submissions I get. When I originally started,
Yeah.
I would clean, and I still do sometimes. I'll take somebody's record and clean it myself.
Okay.
And the reason I do that is because I remembered how it felt the first time I heard myself on the radio. And so
Yeah.
I was like, if I can give that to other people, because one
Oh,
thing I've always been raised on is success is meant to be shared. Otherwise, you're failing. Because
yeah.
if you have to privatize or hang on to your success so tight, all you're dealing with is you're on the edge of losing. You know what I'm saying? How can you be so afraid of loss if you're winning? So what I did was looked at loss as something better than that. When you give and it's willing, it's sharing, and
Yeah.
that's success. So I was like, create these platforms and clean people's music. And when I first started radio, I would take 20 records, some of the stuff off albums, deep cuts, and I get artists from around Richmond and stuff, and I take their music and I clean it for them, and I give them a copy of the record. So like, yo, send this to other people, but I play their stuff. And then when I got into this whole like, music director thing,
Yeah.
that's when I started getting more traction on the internet and getting more known. And so I deal with a pile of records every week, and a
Wow.
lot of them are terrible. You know what I'm saying? I get a lot of bad music, but I mean, I have my ways of going through people's records, and you
Yeah.
can tell. It's silly to say this because I don't want to disrespect anybody's art
Sure.
or trivialize what they have, but a lot of times records are predictable in their symmetry. Not only if you were to expand an MP3 to a waveform, but also just in the scheme of their rhymes, you can begin to see where a curse word is going to land at. So I can listen to somebody's record, and if they're saying something that starts with it, or ends in it, you know what I'm saying, or am or whatever, you know what I'm saying, or something that has uck in it, I can skip through and find out where that curse word is going to be at. And so I can predict those to the point that, one, I can see whether they're eligible to be played on the radio or not because it has to be clean. I mean, if I get a lot of poorly mixed records from people who are just trying to get started.
Yeah.
Sometimes I give them feedback. Sometimes I tell them like, yo, you know what I'm saying? If you were to get a better mix on this, I could do something with this. Or if they
Yeah.
send me a
Yeah.
record that's just overall, the overall master of it is really low, I might,
Uh-huh.
Raise the volume on that for them, increase the
Oh, that's
gain,
what's up.
and
That's
to them and be
nice.
like, yo, I fixed your record for you, or made it
Yeah.
sound something that's more viable. Because in the radio world, the one thing you don't want to do is have a record where the person who's doing the show has to push the volume up or down,
Uh,
in regards to the record that comes before you and the record that
yeah.
comes after you, because
Sure.
most DJs don't want to have to do anything. It's a
Yeah.
very,
Just play
very,
it.
yeah, they want to be able to play. If you're a radio DJ, you're not a regular, scratching DJ. You're a radio DJ. That's what
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't touch the wax. You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
like, I've learned and seen people who are just, oh, I don't want to do with this because I gotta man the board.
Right.
And
Exactly.
like, no, that's counterproductive. So I'm very much about like giving people all the information I can for them to have their best shot at success. And I get a lot of records every week, and I go through them. I put them on the NACC chart for the station. I do the reporting there, and I do the ads and the spins. And I have a distro list that I send all the records I get out to other DJs around the
Oh
country.
man, that's
You know,
great.
I got like somebody. The funny thing is my list, my DJ list. It has it's like a tributary. Like what I send goes to somebody who sends my list to somebody else, and that's like
Uh-huh.
Hot 97. So a lot of times songs that end up on Rosenberg and stuff are actually
Oh,
from
that's
me.
crazy.
Yeah, and I'll be seeing it, and I'm waiting until I be up in New York sometimes, so I'm waiting until I run into that dude. So I'll be like, yo, you know that you got Dochi's record for me, you got this kid. He's played me on there before, but I doubt he knows that like,
That's
yo, I'm
great.
actually the dude serving you. But I had a dude, I found out about that because a guy hit me up when this record got played and
Yeah.
on Hot 97, and he was like, yo, I hit the DJ up, and I was like, yo, how'd you get my record? He's like, oh, I got it from BlackLiq. And I have no idea what DJ it was.
Yeah.
But that's the
Huh.
power of radio, and that's
Yeah,
what makes
sure.
me keep showing up. Like I show up every week for my shit. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
I do it, and every week I handle those charts. Every week, even if I don't chart your record, I'm still gonna put it in the ads folder as long as it meets my standards of like, or just industry standards of like
That's
sounding
amazing.
decent, not sounding like you recorded it on your phone and just never did anything with the files. Because you can do so
Yeah.
much with technology now, or pay a small amount of money and get a professional sounding record. So it was like, I put that into my roles on Monday, especially, and
Yeah.
that's when I my servicing. And I just really try to make sure that I stay consistent. Because one of the
Yeah.
things that I do to maintain all this is I build models. So because
Oh,
if you build a model, then you can build momentum. And once you have momentum,
yeah.
then it requires one push. So every
Yeah.
day I get up and I do one thing, you know what I'm saying, to make
Okay.
everything else fall in place. And that's how I'm able to layer 1,000 things in a day. Like on a
I know.
Monday, I'll do
Yeah.
between like 33 and 42 things. You know what I'm saying? My average
Jeez.
day is about 27 to 26. So, I still take care of my mom. I'm still
Right.
working out every like 5 days a week. I'm
Yeah.
still doing all this other hustle stuff. On Mondays, I'm teaching kids also. Like
Right.
it's a very like, I guess some people think it's difficult, but on the other hand, it's also just a huge opportunity that I don't take lightly, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
So
and on top of recording music and writing
mhm,
music, holy cow,
yeah,
man. That's why
yeah.
I'm always amazed, man. When I'm just seeing the updates, I'm like, dude, I have no clue how he's doing this all,
Oh yeah,
all
and
at the same time.
it's
It's crazy.
yeah,
Yeah.
when I record, like one of the things that like Mopes will tell you, or like Dub Sonata will tell you, is that when I get started,
Yeah.
it gets ugly. So like if you like I sent for this. I have an album right now with Mopes that's almost done, and
Ah,
I
crazy.
did I
Third
did
one.
four I did four in a week for him at one point. You know, like one
Holy.
night each night because I'll put it on my schedule. And the
Yeah.
way I do records is if I listen to a record three times or a beat three times, and if I don't hear the entire song in my head, I don't do it. So
Yeah.
like
Okay.
I'll hear the song and I can hear the song in 5-10 seconds. I'll hear it. I'll be like, there it is, or it's not there. You know. Because
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, the listener; they should be able to catch what you're doing right away. You know,
Yeah.
so I feel like if it catches me, I can hear the symmetry. Then I can inject my meaning and my experience into the
Yeah.
rhymes and let it take me where it needs to go. But
Yeah.
you know that once I know what I'm doing, I can just put it on the list and I'll inject the record into my day. But I mean, I did two albums this year. You know what I'm saying? I got a joint with Dub Sonata too that's gonna come out next year. And
Jesus.
yeah, and both of those albums are real different from each other. I think the
Yeah.
Dub's gonna probably drop first, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna do the other Strange Famous joint. But it's it was a ride because you know my
Yeah.
mom almost died this year, so I went through all that and I journaled that into the rhymes as well as my own journal and everything.
Yeah.
But I try to give people my life as much as possible
Yeah.
because even if I'm gonna exaggerate like with the lie, that was about like the dark experiences taken to a whole nother level and
Yeah.
expand and hyperbole. Whereas like, you know, the next one with Mopes kind of has some comedy to it. There's a lot of jokes and shit talking, you know. But like the joint with Dub though it's a real stark look at what my day-to-day life has been like this year.
Yeah.
And how difficult it was, but also how magical it was. You know?
Yeah, and Mopes too, man. That's another busy
Yeah.
dude, man. That dude's rhyming
Yeah.
too, and
Yeah.
pumping out the beats. So, man, I think you guys make a great combo, and I'll talk about the two albums that you did together.
Yeah.
Freaking awesome to hear that there's a third album that's coming up. Are you a fast writer, or it just depends on the beat, or
Oh, if you give me a beat and I decide to do it, all right, like if you give me a beat, right?
yeah,
You email me the beat. Like for instance, Alexander Brown, right?
yep,
Like what's the difference? That joint that I did, like
uh-huh.
that's like 2 hours. You know what I'm saying? From I hear the beat till I record and write and send it back to you. So like
That's
I have a
crazy, man.
whole yeah, man, I got a formula when it comes to like how I put my mind to the spot to work because I went through
Yeah,
this thing. I did this thing way back, right? I had this thing that happened to me, man. I had my internet get cut off and I was super broke, right? Dude cut my internet off like $120 or something like that, or 250, one of the two. And it was to the point where the cable guy was like, you don't want to just call somebody and borrow money? And I was like, he's like, usually I do this for like $1,000 bill. Yours is like 200 something dollars. I was like, nah, dog, like, you know, I ain't got it. Let's just do it. So he cut that off and I went through a New Year's. And then the next day I was sitting there and well, no, matter of fact, that was before the New Year's. What happened is that I sat down actually. Yes, the trauma. I sat down and I looked at my computer screen, and you know the bottom right icon where it shows the internet, like that joint had the red X over it. I was like, damn, your life is hard. And I decided at that point that I was going to commit to doing 50 songs that year. And then I said, nah, man, do 100. So then I committed to 100. So then I looked at the calendar and I did the math, and I was like, that's 3 songs a week. You know what I'm saying? Every week. And so I
money.
committed to doing 3 songs a week, and that meant having to get the beats from my producers. At that time, it was Lloyd Slug and my man Brenda's Baby, aka Mr. MySpace. I'd hit
Right.
them up, and they'd bring me a CD, or I'd go get a CD of beats from them, and I
Yeah.
would just sit here every day, like every week, 3 nights out of the week, and I'd record. And I was broke, I was on food stamps, but I didn't care because like that's if you choose part of something, you're not gonna get it. But if you choose all of it, then you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, and then you move with acceptance and you recognize abundance rather than scarcity, it'll the universe will provide for you. Not when you
Yeah.
want it,
Ooh, I
but
like
when you
that.
need it.
I
You
like
know what I
that.
mean? Yeah, and it might take some time, and it took a year, and I turned all that into a bunch of releases I put out the next year, which is what
Yeah.
I was thinking of the New Year's. But like I in going through that experience of having to sit down and be like, all right, song, you know, and then the freestyle on the radio constantly and stuff, all that
Oh,
stuff really allowed me to have the ability to lock in. And if I hear something, I'll do it. Something like I said, Dub Sonata a verse one night at like 4 something in the morning. I'd come
oh
home
shit.
and I play the beat and I was like, oh, there's a verse. And you know, I did that in like 15 minutes. You know what I'm
Man,
saying? So
that's wild.
it just shows up. And then I just
Yeah.
gotta like whittle away at it, you know, and make sure that it's right there. And then I just decide what version. Cause I write about 80% of it and then I let the rest come together when I record it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of your choruses too. You're really good at writing hooks. And
Oh
so,
man.
does it depend on like what comes first, or do you build the song around the hook, or just you let it go and just whatever happens, happens.
It's like to me, my philosophy on hooks is, and what I tell my students is, it's the
Mhm.
easiest thing to say 2 times in a row. So when you find an idea that you
Good
can
point.
say 2 times in a row, whether it be structurally or just literally the same thing 2 times in a row,
Yeah.
and you find a unique aspect of symmetry within the beat and pocket utilization that exists solely at that spot. So now
Mhm.
you found, it's like building on an arch. It's the strongest thing you have in that record to build off of.
I
And
agree.
now you've eliminated several different aspects of how the rest of the song will sound lyrically when it comes to your verses, like how you're
Yeah.
structuring your bars. So when I hear a beat, what I do is I draw the numbers. The numbers are like the timestamps for where things go. Yeah,
Oh,
people
right.
bug out when they watch me do stuff because I don't count bars. Everything is by time. So like,
Oh,
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, I'm a time dude. So like, I'll
Wow.
put the time. I used to write vertically like a poem, like 1 word or 2 words, and
Okay.
it made, when I turned something in, it made it a nightmare to fix it. So I had to eventually learn how to write horizontally again. But because I used to write by the breath, but like now I
Hey,
write a verse. You know what I'm saying? And I can internalize mentally what that breath is going to be like in those bars that I structure out horizontally. But when it
okay.
comes to a hook, I know where I place it at, and so if you know the hook starts with a certain aspect of your breathing and your verses, because I don't use any vocal tracks when I perform. So everything I'm writing, I'm thinking I'll be able to do live, like
That's right.
100%. Yeah.
Good.
You know what I'm saying? So like
Uh,
I have to think how you gonna breathe? What's the opposite direction of that breath? Because you don't want to put yourself into a trap for your verse. And then
right.
once I build that structure in my mind and that model, I just find the words that fit the symmetry of that spot that I picked. And that's kind of how I find a way. And it has to be it's typically a conclusive thought or a thought that would bridge two independent thoughts.
Okay.
And that's what allows me to build out the topic of the verses and yet have a hook that in itself has been memorable and make a statement that it covers the entire song.
Bro, you're freaking, oh man, you're disgusting when it comes to like topics and just telling a story. And I'm gonna talk about that in the lie too, and for the culture. That
Yeah.
song, holy cow, man. But it's a trip to me to hear you say that, hey, I never intended on being a rapper or even
Mm-mm,
just doing music.
at
And
all.
as prolific as you are, man, at some point you get exposed to music when you're a kid, man. Do you recall what your mom and dad was listening to when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, pop man, Ice-T. A lot of Ice-T.
Really?
A lot of
Oh,
Easy E
dope.
and Ice-T. And Pop, my brother put me on a Wu-Tang and
Okay.
Gangstar and then Nas and then it all came back. The first artist who was one of my, like, strangely enough, like, this is crazy to me. The first artist I ever listened to,
Yeah.
and I was like, I judged this person harshly, and I decided, I was like, you're making assumptions about this guy. Why don't you listen to his album and see what he's
Okay.
really about? Because it sounds dumb as shit, his music. And it was DMX. It was Get At Me
Oh,
Dog. I heard Get At Me Dog, and I was like, this
yeah.
song is dumb. You know what I'm saying? But then, because I was like, he's just robbing cats. You know what I'm saying? But then I listened to his Dark and Hell is Hot, and that
Oh,
really
man.
changed my perspective
Yeah.
on the fact that somebody could be so strong yet vulnerable, and that a person that you think is nothing but like sharp edges is actually someone who's a stone that's been rounded by the waters of a rough life.
Oh, man.
And his storytelling was something that changed my life. And
Yeah.
hearing DMX, and then I did 3 shows with DMX, before he
Oh,
passed.
that's crazy.
Yeah. So like to go from that to doing 3 shows with the dude was crazy. But like it just had it had as much an impact on me. Like my pops used to play the Tupac song "Open Fire" all the
Yeah.
time and stuff. And my brother used to play, "No More Pain" off "All Eyes on Me." Like all
Yeah.
those records really made an impression on me about kind of shaping my perspective on what you
Sure.
can do with a rap song and how you can, like, I have synesthesia, so I see a lot of shit that I hear
Okay.
and experience it in weird ways and colors and spaces and whatnot. Like I can mix a record by what the colors I see and where they fit. That's usually how I describe it to people.
Amazing.
Versus like this needs to be a lot of that. Like these 2 things aren't fitting. Like this, why is this in front of that? But like that abstraction, it became much more finite through hearing people who were such a high level
Yeah.
master their craft and present it in such a way that I was like, as a consumer, because I never thought I was gonna be an artist. Even then, as a consumer, I was just like, wow, this is really meaningful and it gives me a compass. And like Immortal Technique was the first political rapper I listened
Oh,
to.
yeah.
And he did. When I heard Fourth Branch, I was like, I don't ever have to write a political song ever again. And then I did a show at Immortal Technique, and I got to tell him that, and he dedicated it to me on stage.
That's
So
freaking
like,
awesome, man.
yeah, So I've been given moments that were connected. I mean, Ghostface Killer, I haven't met him yet, but Supreme Clientele, that album made me quit rapping for 15 minutes. You know what I'm saying? I heard
So
it, and
good.
I was like, you know what? You're done. And then I
Yeah.
thought about it, and I was like, he's telling his story. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
just because he's doing it really well doesn't mean that I shouldn't tell mine. So then I got back to it. But
Okay.
like, yeah, but like that album, that was another one that really made me say, like, yo, you can be just like Cool Keith. You can be you, who I freestyled with him and did a show and everything. I've met him a few times. And
So
like,
crazy.
you find out that people can be the most successful in their best selves by just being themselves.
Sure.
And I don't think I ever would have gotten into this, even though you wrestle with the contradiction and the
Yeah.
expectation that you're not supposed to be you all the way, you know what I'm saying? All that stuff. Like,
Got to.
that's what I believe. And
Yeah.
it costs you certain things, because I know a lot of fake people that are successful, but like it was a necessary thing for me to do. And I don't think I could ever have done this if I wasn't able to bring 100% of myself to the craft.
Yeah.
And that started with going back to hearing Eazy-E and hearing NWA and hearing
Right.
Ice-T. Ice-T was never willing to compromise, and I love that about him. You know what I'm saying? Still one of my heroes, man. And I'm gonna meet him. He's on the list.
That's right. Oh, I see it coming, man.
Yeah.
Was it along the way, on your way to Richmond, when you first put pen to paper, or was it not until Richmond, when you first started writing raps? When did that happen?
Rhyme writing. So it started. Okay, so I went, because like I thought about it, right, and I went to like a lot of things, a lot of socially, like in high school and whatnot, for instance, right?
Okay.
Like, because I used to be a big, like, creative writing. When I was in elementary school, they thought I was slow, and they put me in a creative writing class, and and the next year I was back in my grade. And by the time I got to high school, I turned down the AP school to go to regular high school. And I met a dude named Barnes, who was Lord Slug, and Barnes was a senior, and he was a junior at the time, who hung out with all the seniors. I'm a freshman, so he and I saw him, and I just knew, like, this the dude's who put me on to something. And I ended up going to all the parties, you know what I'm saying? Okay. And this guy who was like the school Busta Rhymes, AJ Shorty Rock, I saw him freestyle on a dock out, like, at a party one night, some rich people party. He freestyled, and I realized, like, yo, like, we can do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can do this. And so then I remember the first time I read some Method Man lyrics, and I realized, as amazing as they sounded, they were actually, this guy was just using words. And at the same time, I'd also, like, I looked into rock, and like some singings. I'm not a big R&B person, but like Fiona Apple is one of my heroes. I love her. I did a whole album based on her music.
Oh man.
And called Title. And Fiona Apple, like, I loved her lyrics, and I loved Marilyn Manson's lyrics. You know what I'm saying? Despite him being a bastard, he was very clear about presenting who he is.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I love that people assume bad things about him, and that he was satanic and all this, and he never was really, like, speaking the way that they said he was. He might have said some wild shit, but he wasn't saying what they were saying he was saying.
Yeah.
And so that investment led me to really, like, start writing poetry. And on the internet, I would write poems I would write rhymes that were poems, and I put them on a poetry form, because I realized people would read them on a poetry form. On the rap form, they didn't care.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
That's
but
brilliant.
Form, yeah, people were like, "Oh, this guy's talking about some shit."
Yeah,
and so I did that, and then I submitted one of my poems to a college in California. Is like, because I just saw it randomly, like, this college is looking for, like, writers, and for their university newspaper. And that was the first time one of my poems ever got printed.
Oh, and that's what's up.
So I was writing like that, and then when I saw a dude freestyle as well, and I kept being around freestyles and stuff, I was like, you know what, maybe I want to try it. And that's where I started, like, rhyming and stuff. And then I finally, like, I found myself in classrooms, writing in the margins of my notes, and at my retail job, writing on receipts and stuff.
Yeah.
And then freestyling, I just constantly pushed the limit of the freestyle, because I was like, yo, if you're always ready, you ain't got to get ready. You know what I mean? You stay ready. So, like, I was one to be. And also the thing is that, like, what are the easiest ways? What are the social lubricants of life? It's alcohol, drugs, and music. You know what I'm saying? And the one that you can wake up from the next day and not feel like shit is music.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so I
I
was
love
like,
it.
yo, like if I have something to offer that's unique, and I also
Yeah.
found that in a cipher you can create an environment where
Oh
everybody's
yeah.
equal
Yeah.
because
You welcome
ciphers
him
are
in. Yeah.
respect. Yeah, and everybody I noticed when I be in these freestyle situations, no matter how whack or how good you were, everybody like gave each other room and respect. You
Right.
know, it was the safe space before the term existed. And
Yeah.
and like that changed my life. And I realized being socially awkward and growing up like kind of like not an extroverted person,
Yeah.
I found a way where I wouldn't have to change who I am. Instead, I could
Sure.
be who I am even more, but we could
Yeah.
bond through this experience and have life lasting relationships.
Yeah.
And those ciphers really were kind of my big thing in the writing. Then my man Strick that passed away, he called me one day and I recorded this like just terrible sounding demo, right? And he called me one day and he was playing it in the background.
Oh man.
And that was the first person to ever believe in me. And like that, and like as a
You'll never
fan,
forget that.
yeah. And I was like, yo, he's listening to my shit in the background. And so we got up and we freestyled because he was like, do you freestyle? And I was like, do I? So we got up and freestyle, yeah. And it caught.
Yeah.
And he was like, yo, your vocabulary is so crazy and different. You got to come around. And so I started going to his parties
Yeah.
and we'd freestyle and I would just crush people and then build them up. You know what I'm saying? Because it was about respect.
Yeah.
And like
Bringing.
those parties became like back then I was known as BlackLiq, and that was where it all started, was those ciphers.
Ah.
And like those ciphers and him loving my bootleg ass recording, that all led to me taking things more serious more and more, and just really trying to push my guys to make beats so that I could write and tell these stories. And I just kept being the guy. I go out to shows in Richmond, and if there was a chance to freestyle while everybody else was thinking about if they were brave enough to get on stage, I was already up there because I
Yeah.
was like, the only way I'm going to learn how to do this is to do it. You know what I'm saying? I already
Right.
know I am it, but how can I learn to do it if I don't get up there and do it?
And
And
execute. Yeah.
that's how I just kept building and pushing and trying to go beyond my boundaries of fear and
Yeah.
trying to stay as uncomfortable as possible, even if I hated my music or the way that it sounded, or if I felt like didn't pull off the schemes I was looking for in the rhymes and all that. I just
Yeah.
constantly said, you know what I'm saying, now is always going to be next, but next will never be now.
Yeah.
So stay present in the moment and make the most of it and look for the opportunities to learn, and you'll always be on a path to excellence and success. And I
Yeah.
applied that to my music relentlessly. And
Sure.
that's taken me to just incredible places, man.
This is one question I love to ask people is
Mm-hmm.
the origin of your name. So was BlackLiq, as you said, it was a shortened version of Black Liquid. Was that given to you or did you come up with
Yo,
it or what's the
okay,
story?
so we were freestyling and I said something about, I was just joking and I was like, watch out for this, watch out for BlackLiq. And then my man Barnes was like, yo, that's your rap name. And
Nice.
ever since then, the only
Yeah.
reason I changed it to BlackLiq is because forever on social media there was a DJ, there was a house DJ named BlackLiq, and he was DJ
Oh,
BlackLiq, and there was a blog in like Sweden or something called BlackLiq.
okay.
And I went ahead and got a lawyer and got the trademark for BlackLiq, so that's when I
Oh,
switched it over. So
freaking
I own the
awesome.
trademark. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
if I had a certificate, you spend money on it, you know what I'm saying? You want to stick to, and plus if you do a search,
Yeah.
BlackLiq comes up. If you ever have Googled the words BlackLiq,
Yeah.
Google auto-populates the next word is stool. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
okay. Oh man.
yeah, I'm not a digestive
Yeah,
issue.
yeah, yeah. You like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if you type BlackLiq, you will always get me. You know what
That's
I mean?
awesome, man.
And that's why I was thinking of keyword searches and whatnot, because I was always trying to look for an angle in technology, trying to think smart, not cheat,
Yeah.
and form human connections. Even though I'm not a big social media guy in the sense of I post and I tell my stories, but I don't use social media much as far as like constantly scrolling and staring at it. That
Yeah.
should have drive me crazy, man.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny, man. The still Black Liquid story. But yeah, no, yeah, I love it. And I love hearing that. What were you using before BlackLiq? What was your MC name?
You saw what?
What was your MC name before BlackLiq?
I didn't have one. That was it.
Oh, just went
Yeah.
okay. Oh
Because I
man.
mean, like there was one point, like I'm not going to say the person's name, but there was one point where we were going to use that, and then he came out, and I was like, well, I can't use that. So and then we were freestyling, that became my name. So it all
Man.
just happened, and so I mean, BlackLiq and BlackLiq with it, because one is short for another, it's kind of the same name, but
Right.
that I've always just kept it, yeah,
Oh man. Well,
yeah.
hey, it's at some point, hey, you run into the folks from Strange Famous, and so how long were you rapping before you met the Strange Famous folks? And can you tell me how that happened? How you became a part of their roster?
Oh, yo, the Strange Famous story is wild, yo. check this out. All right. So as I said, I used to throw shows in Richmond, right? At
Mm-hmm.
the same time, I built a relationship with Slug from Atmosphere and Rhyme Sayers.
Oh
And
shoot, crazy.
from radio, he heard of me, this girl named Lucy Freedom. She called herself Lucy Flawless, Lucy Freedom. You know what I'm saying? I think she goes by like Lucy Morningstar now. But
Okay.
Lindsay was what I knew her as. But she told Slug about my radio show one night when I was on air. He
Okay.
listened, and I didn't know who Atmosphere was or Slug was really. I was
Oh
just
man.
like, this guy is listening to my show and DM'd me, and he has a check mark. I was like, okay, but
Oh
whatever. But
crazy.
yeah, I I'm cool with Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, and I thought he was a photographer for 2 years. Like I don't look at what people do. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right,
I was like,
right.
yeah, like I just don't care. So because it's like, tell me who you are. That's all I care about. You know, all this other shit doesn't matter because we're just having an experience as two individuals. And so, Slug was real respectful, and he was like, "Yo, I'll send you some stuff, that people don't have." And he started sending me records and stuff.
Ah,
And
crazy.
he was like, randomly, he was like, "Hey man, we're throwing a festival, called Soundset." He's like, "If you want to come out, I'll give you VIP access to everything. You just got to, pay for your like flight and hotel." And I was
Yeah.
like, and I expected him. He's like, "I know it's kind of a long way from Virginia," and I figured he was expecting me to say no. And
Right.
I was like, you know what? Maybe this dude is trying to set me up for a robbery. So I said yes, and I booked a flight and I flew out to the Minneapolis,
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
I still didn't really know the magnitude of Atmosphere. And so I was at the Mall of America, and I'm looking, and I'm like, "Yo, there's a picture of my guy like on the magazines here and
Right.
stuff. Like, what's that's weird."
Uh-huh.
And we met at First Ave, and
Okay.
he came out, and like the whole time I was like, "This dude is mad weird," because like apparently he's a somebody, but he keeps like responding to my texts and stuff like instantly, like somebody I know from the street. So
Right.
like, so I'm texting him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, come to First Ave," and he comes out to the back of First Ave, and we meet for the first time,
Yeah.
and we're talking, and I look behind me, and there's nobody, right? And then we're talking for 10 minutes, and I turn around, and there's a line, and I was like, "Yo, this guy must be important," you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yo, man, it's
And
crazy.
the next day, I saw him perform in front of 38,000 people, and I was like,
Killed
"Oh."
it.
And then I texted him, and I said, "Yo, man, that was really incredible. I wasn't expecting anything." And he responded instantly. So I was like, "This is different."
Yeah.
So that became the fam, man. And we were just constantly building. And anytime they were in Virginia or the East Coast, we link up. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I went from being a guest at Soundset, because when I did the Soundset thing, I think he thought it was kind of cool that when I went to Soundset, I didn't go to like hang out. I got 250 CDs burned, and then I passed each of them out at the price of I sold them, shall we say, at the price of a conversation. So while there
Right.
were people
Oh,
out
that's
there,
awesome.
there were people out there, like passing shit out. I was like, "I'll sell you a CD, but for a conversation." So I went around and I had 200 and something conversations in Minneapolis during
Hey.
Soundset, and that was the year that Nas played it, Earl Sweatshirt and Tyler played it.
Wow.
Wiz Khalifa got arrested, and then he dropped that tape and then flew to Minneapolis and played Soundset. You know what I'm saying? And like, I saw Nas do Illmatic, and I saw 2 Chainz when he was on Freebase Level. Like,
Wow.
I saw Hobson. I saw a lot of crazy stuff, man. And the
Yeah.
Hobson didn't play that. That was another one. Forgot who the other guy was, but I saw a lot of incredible hip hop stuff there, and it really elevated
Yeah.
my perspective. But I also was very appreciative of that relationship, and I always made sure to do right by Slug and everybody. And I was just
Sure.
really amazed that this guy like took an interest in my music or talking with me and was willing to give me feedback. We built a relationship.
Oh,
And
that's
so
great.
one time they played in Norva out in Norfolk up the street for like about an hour and a half, 2 hours from here in Richmond.
Okay.
And I went there, and the guy who was opening for them was B. Dolan. And B. Dolan, we ended up all talking. We're in the big VIP, the backstage at the Norva, and
Yeah.
we started talking about Nicolas Cage, who of course is right there.
That's
And
right.
we got to talk about Nicolas Cage, and we all just hung out and stuff. And I was like, "Oh shit, B. Dolan, I'd heard of Stage Francis and stuff too, in the cipher and things, and just being a fan of hip hop, but I'd never really done an investigation. But B. Dolan was cool as shit. So I
Yeah.
was just like, word. It came down later on that B. Dolan and Sage were on tour for Epic Beardman.
Airman,
And they
yeah.
needed a venue to play. And at the time, I had the date that they had inquired about at this venue called Strange Matter, where I threw my bi-monthly show series, Face Mount Friday. I threw
Okay.
like 44 of those over the course of 7 years. All artists from around here in 757. I was the first person to bring Drum, the dude who had like the song Broccoli and all that.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
the
yeah.
first to bring him to Richmond. You know
Ah,
what I'm
that's
saying?
awesome.
Like, so, and me and his people in the 757, we did some show swaps and shit. But I had the venue for that date, and the guy Mark who was running Strange Matter hit me up. He was like, "Hey, these guys want to get the date," and I was like, "Yo," I was like, "B Dolan's my man. Like, yeah, give him the date. I want to play the show, but give them the date. Push mine back a week. Let's get it. I haven't announced anything yet, so it's not a problem. Let's do it." So
Yeah.
then we did a show together, which was like it was a mediocre show, but like it was our chance to all meet. And at that time, I met Sage. He was focused on his shit. And I met B
Yep.
Dolan, but we ended up all becoming cool. And
Nice.
and I think that the way that I handled that made an impression on them. So during the pandemic, like way later, you know what I'm saying, the pandemic happens, and I get an email, and it's Sage saying that they're working on putting together a Strange Famous and Friends tape. And so they're sending out a pack of beats. So all the
Oh,
people
that's wild. Yeah.
and like, yo, you know, whoever, you know, like we're trying to put this thing together since we don't know when we'll ever be able to show. So like,
Yeah.
we're just trying to do something to keep people going. And we, you know, you're solid. You've supported us on the radio, and you did the show with us and all that. Like, if you want to get on some of these, let us know. And so my answer, being me, was which ones can I not use? You know what I'm saying? Because if you're looking for 16s,
Yeah.
I sneeze 16s, man. You know what I'm saying? So I was
Yeah.
like, shit.
I
You know what I
you
mean?
know,
Yeah, but I'm gonna go all the way through this. So he told me which ones weren't taken, and I sent the shit back to him in like in a week. And I was like, yo,
damn.
what about the rest of these? And he was like, yo, he's like, a lot of people aren't as overzealous or aren't as aggressive with you
Yeah, that's
as you are
fast.
with this.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And then Mopes, who was then prolific, he hit me
Yeah.
up and he was like, hey man, I make beats for Strange Famous and blah blah blah. He's like, yo, and I was just wondering. And it turned out he had hit up Sage and said, what's up with this BlackLiq guy? And he
Yeah.
was like, or this BlackLiq guy, like, what's his deal? And he was like, hit him up. And so Mopes, then Prolific, hit me up and he's like, you want to try to work on something? And I was like, hell yeah. So we did a bunch of tracks and then nothing happened. And then I circled back because I was like, you know what? I'm thinking about like, what am I doing? Because during that time, during the time that I was writing Time is the Price, I wrote my project with Obliv as well. So Time is the
Yeah.
Price. You know, I write reasons for the rhyme. I mean, I write rhymes for the reasons that you don't, you
Oh
fuck, like
fuck!
that
I
kind of
did
stuff.
shows with major
Like,
artists that
yeah,
realized,
you
yeah, yeah,
suck. Yeah, like stuff like that was happening while I'm writing a project with Obliv that is supposed to be a cohesive one listen through, no skip tape, and no curse words. So I'm being vulgar as hell with Mopes, clean with Obliv, and
yeah.
I finished both of them, and then I started arranging and sequencing tracks, and then I
Okay.
remembered I had this 116 that I did for the Strange Famous and Friends stuff that never came out. And I was like, I really think this should be a great like interlude type joint. So I put it in there. And then
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I hadn't talked to Prolific at the time for a while. So I was like, yo, I think we have something. And I've made this arrangement and I think it's a cool project. But I
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
take one of the joints from that Sage had asked me about. I put that on there. And he was like, well, I don't know if Sage is gonna be cool with that, but I'll run it by him. And I was like, oh, Sage is gonna listen to the album. And he listened to it and he was like, let's bring BlackLiq on and put this out. You know what I'm saying? Let's make y'all a duo. And so then Prolific he changed his name to Mopes and was launching his project. So like at the same time, I had done a feature for Atmosphere on Word on Press. And so they were like, we'll put Mopes out and then we'll do the Atmosphere feature right behind you. And then we'll do your debut album on a label. And so I flew up there. We shot the Party McFly video and stuff. And I did an interview with Rem for his radio show. And then I was announced as a new artist on Strange Famous and kind of the start of this new era of it. And from then it's just been lovely. Like, you know, when I was in Colorado and walking around in Denver with Storm, he was like, it was rare that we find somebody and do something with them, and we realize we want to keep them around. And you know, I told him I don't have tattoos, but if I did, I was like, I would have been got a Strange Famous tattoo because I'm crazy like that. You know what I'm saying? I think. And so they've just been really like the thing about Strange Famous is that it's just a group of guys who are extremely accepting. And also, you know, Sage has used the term theater of the mind to describe our music before. And I have a certain energy that I don't think anybody else on the label has. And, you know, with Jesse the Tree, you have one thing. With Mopes, you have another thing. With like C's Mike, you know what I'm saying? Or Old Boy, any of these guys were all different, like Infinity Stones. So like Sage is a symbol of the gauntlet, you know? And aggressive MC who's straight to the point, but also lyrical and on stage, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm super crazy with it on stage. You know what I mean? So like all those things coming together, I think, is how I've managed to stay in the graces of it. And I had the audacity, you know, after Time is the Price, when we did Choices a Chance, the first song I did was Strange Famous because I wanted Sage
That's
to
the
know.
number one track.
Yeah, and I did that because I wanted Sage to know, like, one of the things I don't play with is like, yo, like
Your
how I feel.
allegiance.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna let you know straight up. Like, one, I ain't going nowhere. But two, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna earn my spot. And so I did a record that literally is tied to the name of the label to show this is the standard we represent.
Yeah.
And when we did our live, he was like, yo, I heard it. He was like, I saw that you called your song Strange Famous. I was like, yo, that's real bold, you know, he's real bold, Black. But he's like, but you killed it, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
for
like
sure.
it's just our relationship has been like that. And so like they're just really, really great guys. And I'm just really fortunate. And it opened a lot of doors.
Yeah,
Somehow, you know,
sure.
dude in Richmond, Virginia, who got down with a legendary hip hop artist in his label in Providence, Rhode Island, like the chances of that are slim to none. Yeah,
Mm,
these guys, after everybody in the world had looked at me and been like, nah, this dude's too real, or this dude's too crazy, this dude's too aggressive, blah, blah, blah. All
yeah.
these people looked at me in a certain way. And these guys, that for once I got asked instead of me asking. And
Yeah.
that was like, that's what you wait for and you work for. But and
Yeah.
you don't wait, you work, and it feels like waiting, but you be patient. You know what I'm saying? And
Sure.
people will tell you no. I've had people tell me no in the form of yes before, and that's a
Yeah.
huge thing because that
Ooh.
means you believe in me. You know, if you're
Yeah.
telling me I can, then I will. You know what I'm saying? And for
Yeah.
Strange Things, instead to be like, hey, how would you like? I was like, absolutely.
Oh, that's
And so
great.
that's how I mean, it doesn't matter what I do next or where I go, because we're allowed to do whatever we want. We're not like exclusively, you know, like
Yeah.
restrained like that. So we can
Sure.
do whatever we want, but I will always be a Strange Famous artist.
That's
Like
it, man.
I ain't ever going, I ain't no matter who, I can get a deal with Def Jam tomorrow and I'm still gonna be representing Strange Famous.
I love it, man. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
family.
That 2021 album Time is the price that you
Yeah.
mentioned, produced by Mopes. Your intro. I just got to show you love, man. It's my favorite song is intro. You know,
Yeah.
right? And you talked about it, right? I rhymes for the reasons that you don't do fuck.
Yeah.
I hit
Yeah. Yeah.
shows with major artists and realize they suck.
Yeah.
And I'm just all lyrics, man. All my heroes ain't dead. They just making a living. I know a whole lot of bitches, ain't none of them women, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, dude,
Yeah.
that was like my introduction to your music. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it was crazy. Like I know Mopes from a mutual friend. And so I was very excited to hear this album and I just wanted to show love. And then my other favorite track on there was Dumb.
Yeah.
Just a lot of good lines. I would rather get better than say I'm the best. I'd rather fuck two nickels than trick on the dime. And
Yeah. Yeah.
my other line was game recognized game. Let a hoe be a hoe. When you get shit together, you end up alone, man.
It's
So
true.
hey,
Yeah.
man. Woo, man.
Yeah.
I was like, yep, I feel it. So
Yeah,
really,
man.
really cool, man. And yeah, and I was really happy to see that you guys put up a follow up album, right? You mentioned Choices Chance. Not too
Mm-hmm.
long after that, I mean, 2023. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, you mentioned it's cool that I hear the backstory of Strange Famous, which is my also favorite song from the album. In addition to Therapy,
Yeah.
was oh man, Therapy's ridiculous, man. So
Thank you, man. Thank you.
yeah. Yeah. So lyrics again, I work out. I'm a beast. That false confidence, right? You create
That
that
shit
mental
fucked up.
mindset. Reason why I exercise just so I
Yeah,
can
yo.
conquer this. So yeah, just real, man. You're very lyrical, and I appreciate just the ill storytelling ability. And hey, I see the new album right in Nick Cage's hands, right? The Lie. Do you want to tell us about that project real quick? But I just love that little line you
Oh
mentioned
man.
where, yeah, the lie because no one wants to hear the truth. So you're gonna tell it,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
can
yo.
you
I
shed some, yeah.
The Lie was this is the crazy thing. I've been posting my like this is the Lie anniversary week actually. Because I've been posting about that shit all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
that album was the album that was like the problem child. That album, I wrote that album in 2017 before
Oh,
everything for the most
crazy.
part. I started writing it then. So like I wrote it, I was after I did Anti, my last BlackLiq album was Anti. And that
Okay.
was like some super duper like aggressive, crazy shit going on with that. I love that album, you know what I'm saying? But it
Yeah.
was an album I wrote to perform aggressively, which I did. But like, you know, that was like, all right, what do I do after this? Because I went to such a place. And you know, with Anti being what it was and how it felt, I was like, all right, I want to tell a story like nobody wants to hear the truth. And I've been telling the
Right.
truth about my life for so long. I want to make people ask questions. Like, was Black really riding around about to shoot somebody? You know, like, was he really doing these things? Was he really like thinking these negative thoughts? Were people in the industry really telling him all this foul shit? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I really wanted to take that and then build on it and just create a universe. And so the Lie, we kicked it around, we pitched it so much, and it never got picked up by anybody. And then I ended up making 2 more albums before it came out. You know what I'm saying? And a project with Obliv. And so like I just always, it was a passion project. As much as it was a problem child, it was a passion project. And eventually, like Man Bites Dogs, they were like, I mean, Man Bites Dog Records, they were like, yo, like, we want to put it out.
Yeah.
And so I linked with them for that. And it was my first album to ever come out on vinyl 12-inch.
Wow.
And it was all like I was able to fund it all through money that I made through music.
Sure.
So like it was a milestone, but it was also just a real bitch to like put out because just everything went wrong when we put it out. And that was the whole thing, is like the entire duration, like we had a damn global pandemic. And because if we didn't have that pandemic, it would have came out. I would have, because I started an LLC No Other Way, you know, with my business partner BC. Me and Bill, well, Plain Old Bill, who's Atmosphere's DJ, aka Hibble now, like he and I had made a war pact. We were like, I'm gonna put the lie out and you're gonna put your shit out. And we talked during the pandemic, like for hours, so many times. That's my brother there, man. So like we as family, we made our pact, and then things like great things kept happening, but things kept happening that got in the way of that album coming out. Wow. And so to put it out was like bittersweet, because it was like I really wish I could have put this out like when it was what represented going on in my life, but it's also art. And like that was one of the conversations we had. And so I was like, I gotta put this album out regardless. And it's writing about it like in retrospect all week has been really, 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 it's been an experience. It's been difficult in some ways because I've had to accept that like I've moved beyond it. You know, I've written 2 albums since it came out, you know?
Right.
So like and a punk rock EP. So and half of another punk rock EP, because we're doing something new too. But like it's just like it was an album that really represented the darkest time of my life, and also the transition. That album, despite Thomas and Price being where the world got introduced to BlackLiq. That was like the becoming BlackLiq album, because that was when there was no more BlackLiquid. I've recorded a whole other album for haters.
That's why you trashed it. I heard
a whole album.
That is like it doesn't exist anymore.
Nope. I just said nope. We're starting over.
Damn, I thought that was crazy, man.
Yeah. Wow. But it was like, because one of the rules of music for me is motion, and it's like if I'm going backwards, it's not motion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just me doing something to do it, and I can rhyme. But it was like. It's like how Jigga talks about how, like, for me to put out an album, there'd have to be a reason now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, this stuff isn't just like I'm creating a product. This is like aspects and reflections of my life. Even when I'm crazy with the lie, like I want this to be part of my art, because in life, this is what, when I'm gone, this is what will be there. You know what I'm saying? This stuff is forever. So do I want to put out an angry ass album about like local politics and shit, or do I want to put around something that hopefully can help people? So when I put out The Lie, I was like, this is sinister. When I started working on it, I was like, this is sinister and heavy, but it's also a commentary on what it's like to be in this position where you're too on to be off and too off to be on. Everybody looks at you and they look up at you, or they look down at you, or they feel like you're looking down at them. And around here, man, everybody knows each other, man. And I've always tried to give people the opportunity that was never given to me. But like, it just can sometimes get kind of combative. And so I wanted to put out an album that was really like, I'm standing on mine. You know what I'm saying? And I'm also letting y'all know that I'm a lot like all y'all. And I'm also like gonna make an album that's a rap album. It was called Rapper to begin with. And you know, when Sleeves passed and stuff, and just how life had changed, it just became more appropriate to build off of that aspect, because the further I get in this music business, the more I see it's bullshit. And you know, people who have big I mean, right now we're in an interesting place where people are being a lot more transparent about it. But like, you know, one of the biggest cracks in the facade was the pandemic, where you saw a lot of people that you thought had their shit together were suddenly desperate and broke because they couldn't go on tour. And you know, one of the rules of life, and why I will always, like, you know, I've kept a job the entire time I do this, because I love to work. I work while working. That's one of my rules. And they always say, if you ain't got a year's worth of your pay in your bank account, you're in trouble. You know what I'm saying? So like, I've always been hustling. I'm the only person in my family that has good credit. You know what I'm saying? And like I've always tried to build a life. And when I saw that these people who were like, you know, looked at with such admiration and adulation, and you know, they're like, oh, everybody's like, oh my God, it's so and so. A lot of these dudes ain't got shit except what you're seeing. They might have a chain, but that was their budget. You know what I'm saying? They ain't got no health care. You know what I'm saying? They ain't got no backup plan. And while I appreciate and I represent and I respect and recognize their dedication, the one thing you want to have in life always is a solid foundation, not a
Yeah.
safety net, but a foundation. And when you have a strong foundation, it'll support a support system as well. It'll facilitate that.
Yeah,
A
that's
lot of
true.
people, if you
Wise
show them that
words.
you're solid, they'll stand there with you and they'll stand for
Right.
what you stand for. And so, you know, the lie, that album was to have the privilege and the opportunity to circle back and put it to the forefront, despite it requiring me mentally to go through the darkness that I went through all over again to get to where I am now. I
Right.
felt it was important to take people on that journey too, because I mean, it's still relevant. Number one, as far as like a song like The Culture, like it's still like that. But
Yeah.
also just the fact that like people need to see, man, that you know, just because you live in the light doesn't mean that there isn't darkness. But you have to
Right.
let the light
There
not be
is.
defined by the dark. And so I wanted to give them some of that, you know,
Yeah.
and it felt really great to be able to tell a story that was bigger than me, and not just like everything that I do is typically like this just happened, you know. And instead, I was like, I'm dropping an album that represents a certain capsule of time in my life
I like
that
that.
also is just so extreme I can live outside of it. But the problem is that I found myself going back into it. I didn't ride around and almost shoot any prostitutes, but I but I did have a lot of dark thoughts in experiencing it. And I've just kind of re-experienced all that talking about it again and all these posts I've been doing this week and stuff and reflecting on it. But it's also in a way that I'm very proud of that album.
Yeah,
You know?
I admire you for being able to just make the call with the Richmond is Hit for Haters album. Just saying, you know what, I don't want this to reflect who I am. You're right. Your music is your legacy, and so I love that. You know, hey, you captured that like you mentioned, capsule in time, and made that decision. Hey, this is what I want reflected, and this was what I want to show. So yeah, amazing that you were able just to crash that and just, you know, hey, this is what I want. So I really appreciate it. And the
Thank you.
culture, man, it just started off hard, right? Yeah, for the culture, I show everybody love. I spend over $1,000 because everybody does. I'm on social media. People could say they know me without ever meeting up, and
Yeah.
just that, yeah, that whole thing, man. And so you're right, man. I thought that was a darker album than the ones I've heard before, but it was very powerful, and I can only imagine how much crazier it is performing it live. Have you performed the album live yet?
Oh yeah, I performed the shit out of those songs because those,
Yeah.
despite the fact that like the songs weren't I mean the album wasn't out from the
Uh,
time where I was planning on releasing it, I
yeah.
made those songs part of my sets. So
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
performing PMD and Culture,
yeah.
and I've done Me before, I did NWA. I learned all that album. I'm terrible at learning my songs because when I hear a song, I want to freestyle. And
Okay.
like one of my things is like, man, I'll be deep in the trenches of a verse and I'll just be like, fuck this. And I'll just freestyle on the show. And nobody will
Look,
know.
okay.
You know what
I've
I'm
done
saying?
that too. Yeah.
But like I just love that feeling because it's
Yeah.
pressure and you
Yeah.
have to adapt. But I've been performing those songs for a long time. So like
That's
going
great.
back, I did a show in Rhode Island last year.
Okay.
Yeah, this dude Shamar had brought me up there, and I was like, yo, I was like, I'm giving you the new shit tonight, Shamar. He was like, what? And man, I just video that closed called Dusk, and I went stupid hard. They were not ready because they were expecting just a regular, like, you know, even therapy and in the
Boom,
beginning,
back, boom,
strange
back. Yeah.
things. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm taking like the PMD and the, you know, and the territory of like, you know, doing an aggressive version of like the culture and just really going hard with these songs because that album, like those songs are hard. Like they're
Oh,
all hard. Everything Born Has to Die, that song
dude.
is some hard shit. You know what I
Yo.
mean?
Hey, you know what's hard is thank you God. Here's where you're channeling your
Oh,
iced tea. She said
yeah,
you
yeah,
can't be BlackLiq all your life. I said, fuck
yeah.
bitch,
You
you
are
are
not
not
my
my
wife. You know what
wife.
I'm saying? Yeah. Yo, you know
I was
what?
like,
The one thing
damn.
about well, yeah, and you know what's crazy about that song
Uh-huh.
is and I did do that joint. They were like, oh my God. Yeah. And the sound system there was
Yeah,
crazy. So like that joint
dude.
came on. But I wrote that song. I wrote that song originally. The second verse was the first verse, and
Yeah.
the first verse was the second verse. And when I went to record it, it
Oh,
just felt backwards. So I was like, let me fix that. But
yeah.
I love that song because it's kind of like how Armageddon Time is, you know, like
Okay.
with it being, you know, a rock themed and having those guitars that are just really going. Like
Yeah.
you know, Hobie Benjamin did an incredible job mixing that record.
Yeah.
And that was one of the ones that he made really shine. So when I get to
Okay.
do that song, I mean, it feels like I'm with my band. Doing punk rock shows is
Man.
incredible.
Oh yeah,
Like,
the crowd must be nuts. Just
oh,
awesome, amazing energy.
the energy behind that shit, like going into like punk saved me in a lot of ways
All right.
in refreshing my view on music because you know Time is a Price came out, right?
Okay.
And then the next day I was under a bridge doing my first punk rock show and Randy
Yeah.
Blythe was taking my picture,
Yeah.
you know. So
Oh
like
man.
so it's my first time ever doing a punk show. This guy just came back from doing a fucking tour with Megadeth and he's
Man,
coming to see me do my first show under a
that's
bridge,
awesome.
you know, yeah,
Yeah.
and terrifying, you know what I'm saying? But like Randy is such a good dude
Yeah.
that he takes a genuine interest in growth and development of his friends and fam, like in the sense of not like you're getting better, but what does it mean to you? You know, what did it
Sure.
feel like? And he showed up and those pictures that he took, they ended up on our vinyl, you know, like in the
Oh,
sleeves for our
nice.
vinyl and stuff. So like that punk rock shit, when I found myself as a fish out of water, like I just made my label debut and I'm under a bridge doing a punk rock show on and with my band's on an indie label, but like here I am in another world. And being like starting over and like the crazy shit was like it took like 6 months before somebody in that world would come up to me at a show and be like, yo, I saw a video of you rapping and it was really good. Like none of them knew.
Right. The
So
two
like
worlds. They didn't.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
they didn't
so
cross yet.
I was like brand new in that world, and the punk world is so different. But the energy, like at a lot of rap shows, people might be kind of scared or turned off because I'm real aggressive with my shit. But at a
Yeah.
punk show, they're like more, you know, they're like give us more. I've had a mic die before and just done it without sound, and people just come in closer to hear you. Like it's such an embracing thing, and you can talk to women at punk shows, and they don't think you're trying to sleep with them.
Oh,
Like
gotcha.
it's a whole other world. And the other thing too is that the most depressing aspect of being in the punk world and is also one of the best aspects is that in the punk world, people are genuinely excited about the openers as much as they are the headliners.
Oh, that's
So it doesn't
awesome.
matter where you are,
Yeah.
they're there for the whole thing and they're treating your merch with the same respect. Because as
Oh,
a vocalist, as a punk band, the rule is you do the show and then you go straight from the stage to the table to
right.
handle any business. So you go from screaming at people and being gone to having
Yeah.
to do math and have conversations. And so I'll go and I'll be drenched in sweat and the wife be there, my vision will be blurry, and I'll be like, what do you need? You know what I'm saying? I'm doing search and I'm doing all this. People were so invested in the culture of that. Like you do a punk
Yeah.
rock show at the end of the night, you know what I'm saying? We got 5 times, you know what I'm saying, what you would have got off. You know, if there's a handful of people, you're still making way more than you would at a rap show. And
Mm.
everybody wants whatever the touring band is going to get the biggest split for them to keep going.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's the honesty and the integrity of it. And so they'll be like, yo, let's make sure that they get their extra bread and let's make sure everybody's good. And like but everybody makes money and everybody gets respect and love, and you make real relationships and real friends out of it, you know?
It's
In
cool.
rap, so much of the shit is transactional. And also when you do a rap show, people ain't coming to buy your shit. They're
Oh, that's
coming to
interesting.
stand around and they might skip you for a headliner even and shit. But like at a punk show, man, I've been at a show before. Even when we did a show with fucking with one of these fucking this big sludge band, the one that was on Beavis and Butthead.
Okay.
Fuck, I can't remember their damn name. We did a show with them and I'll never forget, somebody came up to me and told me that they were outside and they heard somebody say, yo, the show starts at 8 o'clock. It's 7:59. We got to go inside right now. You know what I'm saying? And they came in and like for our shit to see us, you know?
That's awesome, man.
And we still made money selling that. And venues around Richmond, the politics, they're just way more open to paying you, paying bands for some reason. It's always been like that. So
Yeah.
like I just really without the energy of punk rock and stuff like that, I would have just been like, I don't think I would have been able to understand music in the new way that I do. It was Crowbar. That's who we did the show with.
Okay.
We did a show with Crowbar. So like it like doing that Crowbar show and like having these experiences with punk rock right on top of getting my access and getting signed and all that shit that people perceive it as, you know, in music, there's always more to learn.
Yeah.
And just when you reach a certain level, if you feel like you bump your head, the next step is for you to break through.
Man,
And
dude.
that's what I got. And despite graduating to hip hop, it was punk rock that got me to the next place of having a different perspectives than all my peers and all this, and trying to bring now some of that punk audience to the hip hop and vice versa. But also like when I leave town and I go do shows, I take some of my band's vinyl with me too. And just
oh, that's awesome.
People buy all that shit because Strange Famous, you know, Sage used to be with punk. So like there's a lot of crossover there. But also just when you show people that you're legitimate and you respect also different genres, they're much more open to being like, yo, I can connect with this person because this person is this person, you know, regardless of the genre. You know, art is art. And so I love breaking down those boundaries. And also for my hip hop people, being the guy who's the ambassador to bring them over to the wild world of just sound and noise and anger and sweat and frustration and just people who aren't doing it for any reason besides they love it, you know?
And that's amazing that you had mentioned that. But I guess one, I really got to talk to my buddy too, who's the same as you. He does rap and just he's also performing in the punk. Shaman Cassette, good buddy of mine, does the same thing as you. I got to get with him on punk culture, but that was very educational. And so I do want to close before I get into some lighthearted questions about words of the day, some of your statements. And you mentioned something that I was going to ask you about. We can climb the walls we put around ourselves instead of banging our heads against them, hoping it'll lead to a breakthrough. So, man, I love how you said that because man, you got me spot on. I was going to ask you about that, but I agree, man. That's a great way to sum it up, man. We got to work together, make this thing happen. So that's great.
Yeah, and those thoughts that I share, you know what I'm saying? Like, and see that's the ironic part. It's wild to me that you say words of the day because WFTD is watch out for the devil.
Man, you know what I mean? I was like, what does it mean, dude?
Yeah, but that's the thing is it's become more than that, you know? And it's becomes like those two things, the synchronicity and the whole like synonymous aspect of it, it is something to me that I think is incredible. And I love the fact that people like social media, I hate it, right? I hate having to go and sit down but I do it because like I can share a thought I've had to tell myself, right?
Right.
And the reason the thoughts now are in quotes every time is because everything that I'm posting now is basically from my journal that I'm turning into a book.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like field testing quotes that I've had to tell to myself or thoughts that I've had to tell to myself, but I'm also making sure that I haven't forgot the lesson that thought taught me. And that's the thing is you have to, learning doesn't stop learning only stops when you say you know. And if you say you know, you're fucking up because you're supposed to be learning. Life is about learning. You know what I'm saying?
Nonstop.
And I've made enough mistakes to have to learn the same thing several times. And when I find one of those thoughts that I share and then I post it, it is the words of the day, but it's also watch out for the devil because I've been caught in my bullshit. And I'll be standing outside on the block or I'll be somewhere and it's never, well, I'll say it's not never, but it's like I'd say 80% of the time when somebody comes up to me and they say something about my social media, it's always about the quotes or the thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
I've had people ride by and be like, hey, BlackLiq, thanks for that affirmation you posted yesterday. And just keep going. Like, shit like that, you get recognized in the airport and somebody's like, yo, I just love what you've been posting. I love your thoughts and your positivity on social media, man. Don't stop. Like people stuff connect. Like that. That shit is as much as it like, you know, you want people to be like, yo, your music's fucking dope. Like I'm existing like to be recognized in such a unique way, along with like having a TED talk to support that.
Right.
Like that stuff is I wouldn't trade it for the world. I wouldn't change anything for the world, man.
Man, you're absolutely a role model, and like I said, man, those that know you, your work ethic is crazy. It's unmatchable and just amazing. And for those again that don't know you, be ready to be amazed. But I wanted to thank you, man. Just it was awesome to go into your music, your story, just learn about you, man. As I said, man, I've just been impressed since day one. And so it was an absolute honor to talk to you just about your life story and music. And I like to end interviews on some fun, lighthearted questions. So if you're ready, I'm going to kick those off before we end. All right. BlackLiq, does he have skills in the kitchen? If so, what do you like to cook?
Yo, oh man, my food situation is terrible. No, I'm gonna tell you like this. There's a line on the new Mopes album, right, where I say I might quit hot food because at the time I was thinking about just stop eating hot food. All I eat is fruit, salads without dressing, I do RX bars in between and rice cakes, and I do
Oh,
yellow pea protein powder like once a day. That and I drink coffee. I drink Perrier and water and like electrolyte water, like Propel, like if I'm doing a workout or something.
yeah.
I was a very chubby kid. I did
Okay.
all the food shit early, and I've never like my rule has always been if it takes longer to make it than it does to eat it, I'm not interested because I got shit to do. So like yeah, and I've never been a good date in that sense because it's like let's go out to dinner. It's like I'll watch you eat. So like that cheap date though is only one person is eating. But I don't have any kitchen skills, yo. Nah. I mean I can make I make stuff for my mom, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I make purees for her and stuff because she's on like a
Yeah.
thin diet. So I make purees for her and I make like soups and stuff
Oh,
like that. But I would never say like, yo, I'm nice with the kitchen because nah,
yeah.
I can wash dishes though. Yeah.
Hey, that's awesome though. You stay healthy, health as well. So I love that. Good
Mm-hmm.
response. All right. Let's see how you feel about this. Is it okay to save a parking spot by standing in it?
Uh hell yeah. Yeah. I've done that shit,
Yeah,
especially at a
I've
venue.
done it too.
Yeah, I was like, at first I was like, because that's like a grocery store shopping cart question, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
return the cart. I always return the cart.
Oh, I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't understand these people who go and they leave the cart in the empty spot. You could
That's
at
right.
least like put the cart in the spot you had or something.
Okay.
But like, yo, you're messing it up for everybody else. You know what I'm
Good
saying?
manners.
And plus, you can all you have to do, you can be all the way
Yeah.
across from the cart like container thing that then it catches them, and
Okay.
then mock like blood sport the cart and send it flying. That's one of my favorite things. Yeah, so I hit it with the dude mock. You know what I'm saying? Like bam, you know what I mean? And I send that joint going. You know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the store tonight and do that shit. Like so
Uh,
I'm all about saving a parking spot for somebody if they're coming somewhere and you know they're coming
yep.
versus taking a parking spot through irresponsibility. So yes, we're saving
Okay.
spots. We're
I
saving
love.
seats too, Seinfeld style. Except we ain't folding. You know what I mean?
All
Yeah.
right. Next question. What would your music be if it was an ice cream flavor?
Uh
I know. Might be tough
hmm.
since you got that particular diet.
Yeah, no, I was a fat kid, so I did all the ice cream. Um I'm trying to think. What would it be? That's a tough one. If it was an ice cream flavor, it would be hold up. Because I mean the easy answer is like something dark, but we're not eating by color. You know what I'm saying? What does the sound taste like?
Hmm.
Um, it would have to be something that it has a bitter edge,
Okay.
but also a very generic level, but generic yet like like when you have expensive vanilla and it's
Yeah, yeah,
better than like cheap chocolate chip.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would like want something like a very it would have to be a very like high quality vanilla,
Okay.
but mixed with like the bitterness of like cherry or something.
I like it.
Yeah, yeah, and
I like it.
like it would have to have the chunks in it because that life is rough. You know what I'm saying?
That's good. I see that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Fill in the blank. I hate it when.
Uh, I hate it when I hate something
Why is that?
because if I hate something, I'm missing out on the love, and
Awesome.
I'm also typically when you hate something, you do it out of ignorance because, like for instance, I used to hate a lot of people's music, and then I realized, yo, if I'm missing the ability to appreciate it, I'm missing the ability to connect with people.
Oh man,
So
like
I
that.
try to remove my preconceived bias, which is just another form of assumption, which is just another form of ignorance, and I
Yeah.
try to replace it with appreciation through experience. And so if I don't have time to experience that music yet, I withhold my opinion on it,
Okay.
and I try to avoid imposing any sort of bias on it, which is why like I'll play people's records on the radio that I really don't like because there's somebody else out there who might love that kind of shit,
Sure.
and it's all art. I hate it when I hate shit, and a lot of times people I love are people I've hated first. I go from Saul to Paul, as they say, but it's a very important thing for me to not make assumptions because so many people, especially when I used to have the big beard and stuff, so many people
Yeah.
made assumptions about me.
Oh right.
And,
Yeah, yeah.
and one of the most fulfilling things might have been proving them wrong, but at the same time,
Always
it was
satisfying.
it was also one of the most empty things because
Yeah.
it showed that they were also guilty of assumption and also
Yeah,
to do that. And it shows you like
yeah, that's
how sharp a sword judgment is, you
right.
know?
No, yeah, I agree with you, man. You said people have to think of it and have assumptions like that, so I agree.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last two questions for you.
Word.
One, have you ever had a celebrity crush, and who was it?
Yeah. Shit. Hold up. I'm trying I don't know her name, but the first one that comes to mind is
Mm.
the girl from Friday the 13th was always a big crush. When I was a kid, you
Part
know what I'm saying?
one, yeah.
Yeah, my parents used to laugh at that shit. From not from Friday, from Nightmare on Elm Street, I mean.
Oh,
Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah,
I
that
gotta go
girl.
back. Mm.
But I would say like, I mean, if you want to talk fly celebrity shit, man, I mean, like, there's a pantheon of joints that are
Yeah,
always legendary
right,
bad. You know
right,
what I mean?
right. Yeah,
Like Eva
yeah.
Mendes, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Salma
yeah, she's
Hayek.
oh man, those are all
Yo,
good ones.
even you know who's fly, yo, who I think not on some whole like weird, like cringy sexual shit, but just period, like who's fly, man? Like
Just all
lately
around.
that I've seen in this era of celebrity or whatever, is that girl who played Sophia on the Penguin. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
I haven't seen that show yet. I gotta check it
Yo,
out.
that show, I slept on it forever, but she was amazing in it. You know what I'm
Ah,
saying?
nice.
As you grow in life, your appreciation for what like the opposite sex and the attraction is,
Right, it
it
changes.
develops,
Yeah,
yeah, and it becomes more mature. And that she was an incredible woman in it. You know what I'm saying? What
okay,
attracts me about a woman is not like a lust thing. It's about, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying, like
the whole package.
I ain't never been into girls, man. I've been into women, you know what I'm saying?
Ah,
So like I like a fully developed character, you know what I'm saying, and a fully
yes,
developed poise, you know what I'm saying. I don't want to be the first, I want to be the last. So
yeah, I
like,
like that.
you know, like that shit. Like I looked at her and I was like, yo, like she gets it. You know what I'm saying? She gets what real attraction is about and how to seduce. She seduced the camera the whole show.
Oh
I thought
wow,
she was amazing. So like that's
yeah,
the kind of thing that I think is amazing about about women and what women bring so unique into this world is their ability to to be seductive, and you don't have like we live in such a risque era,
sure,
like I think that the most important and powerful thing is always going to be the imagination. And I'd rather deal and see like something that is like not all out there. You have to allure people, and I think this world cheapens people's beauty by constantly marketing things. It's just up there. She is like you can Google anybody you see on TV and see them naked now. That
yeah,
shit is crazy. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like it's just a strange thing. So yeah, like I see bad joints on TV. I was like, I'm not a Sydney Sweeney guy. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather see like the Sophia chick from the Penguin who doesn't
yeah,
ever take her shirt off. You know what I'm saying? I can
yeah.
respect that. You know what I mean? Sydney's bad. Don't get it twisted. She bad. But it's just like, yo, that ain't my business. You know what I'm saying? And like, I mean, even there's a whole lot of joints, man. And Shorty didn't play the Catwoman, the Zoe Kravitz, she bad as shit. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah, yeah.
Like,
She's pretty amazing too. Yeah.
there's a lot of joints, man, but like, it's just one of those things, man. The mystique of a woman is something that should not be able to be replicated or duplicated. From Eartha Kitt all the way down,
Oh,
you know what I'm
Eartha
saying?
Kitt. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
like,
Oh man,
it's a
I
thing,
agree.
man. It's a thing. We can talk ladies, man, you know what I'm saying? Believe that. You know what I mean? It's
Let's
a
go.
real thing, yo.
Looks like we
Yeah.
got episode two on the on
Yeah,
the
yo.
horizon. I love that, man. Well done with that answer. And my final question for you, I just made this one up on the spot. Your
Word.
favorite Nicolas Cage movie?
Ooh, shit. All right, I think because it rotates, but I think my
Mm.
strongest cage match, my cage fight, right? That's what it is to me, right? I gotta go back and say Leaving Las Vegas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
because that movie, man,
Yeah.
there is just as somebody who became an alcoholic and went deep in the game of alcoholism,
Yeah.
not only was the way that he represented that like powerful, but also I mean the film itself was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But the when you can watch a movie from somebody and feel their pain and you can actually experience that character from the slight piece of time that you get, but as a whole person, like when they live in your imagination, that to me is what is like remarkable about the actor. And Nicolas Cage, a lot of times people like, he's like a whimsical character or whatever, like, oh, leaving Las Vegas, or any of the strange like B-ish movies he made, like Beyond Two Worlds and shit like that. Like,
Right.
oh, we can laugh at this even when he's being serious. I think that or even Face Off, where he's being, wildly
Yeah.
commercially acceptable, or National Treasure. Like those are
Sure.
cool and shit. But like a film like Leaving Las Vegas is something where he was showing that there's more to him.
Yeah.
And I love that movie. That movie is like Bringing Out the Dead is another good one. That's like an era of him
Oh,
doing
I haven't seen
serious shit, or eight
it. Okay.
millimeter.
Yep.
But like
Good one.
that Leaving Las Vegas, that joint like struck a nerve always.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to know. Well, hey, thank you again. Hey, I mentioned all your accolades, and it was an honor to go into that and just do a deep dive. But I want to give you the floor for the last word, man. Can you tell folks the best place to find your music, and just any
Yeah.
closing comments before we end this interview?
Yeah, it's BlackLiq. It's BlackLiq, whether it be .com or any of your social media. If you
Yep.
go to any of that, you're going to see me always on there. I'm pretty consistent in making sure I have a straight narrative on each social media platform,
Right.
Spotify and all that dumb shit. You're going to see it's BlackLiq. You go to Bandcamp, you type it in, I'll come up on Man by His Thoughts, on Strange Famous and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Even if you look me up on a DSP, you'll see my band Armageddon Time as well on there. But
Yep.
it's just BlackLiq, one word, not two, on all platforms everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Y'all can look me up. And the number one thing I'm gonna tell everybody out there is that holla at me. If you're an artist, you want your music played on the radio, I'll play your music on the radio. Even you want your music on the radio, you holla at me. If you want to build, I ain't about transactional conversations. I don't want your money. I want to be able to expand each other's world and help us
That's
broaden our
awesome.
perspectives and accept ourselves better. So I'm always here for that. And if you're going through some shit, I'm going through some shit too. So just holler at me. You ain't gotta be an artist to get a BlackLiq. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just about reality. That's it. That's what I recognize and that's what I represent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
BlackLiq all day, Strange Famous Records. I appreciate your time.
Ain't no
Enjoy
thing.
the rest of your weekend. Yeah.
Oh,